we will now discuss some limitations of Coase theorem, or in other words, we will discuss when the Coase theorem works and when it fails to give us a solution. The assumptions in Coase theorem is, or the conditionalities for the Coase theorem is, that the property rights should be well defined. If the property rights are to be well defined, they should be enforceable in the courts, right? Because courts are the places where the property disputes are settled. So the second point in the Coasean approach is the transaction cost should be zero. But if the property rights are to be enforced in the court, the transaction cost will not be zero. One needs to pay the lawyer, one needs to spend some time in the courts to make sure that the property rights are enforced. So in that manner, it's not that effective, because the bargaining often leads to the property disputes, and the property disputes are settled not by further bargaining amongst the parties, but they are settled in the court, which entails the transaction cost. By transaction cost, I mean the time spent in the court, the money spent for the lawyers, right? So this is one of the difficulty in Coase theorem implementation. Uh, if you take some practical examples where the Coasean approach has worked, you see that the slide which I had shown here, it is related to a power plant company in America. It was known as American Electric Power Company, and this is the story of 2002, way back, where American Electric Power Company, it because it had a power plant, coal-based power plant, which generated a lot of fly ash and created negative externality. They went and had a bargaining with the residents. About 221 residents were there, and without any government intervention, the bargaining resulted in the residents being offered money for their land. Uh, this money which they were offered was above the market value. So the residents, they took this option, they sold their land to the power company, and they went elsewhere and settled, right? So this, according to Coasean theorem, uh, is the efficient outcome. But if you think at it critically, think about this problem critically, you would understand that the Coasean approach has not resulted in reducing the pollution of the coal power plant, or incentivizing the power plant to install pollution control equipments. What happened was, in this case, it simply went by market logic. Market logic in the sense that the power company was getting a lot of profit selling electricity to its consumers, and the stakeholders, that is 221 residents around that power plant, it was easy for the power company to compensate them, right? Because of the profit it generated. But if you look at it from a holistic perspective, the environmental bad, that is the pollution, was not tackled. So this is the problem with Coasean approach. The second case study I would point out is about Dow Chemicals. It is again a multinational which produces lot many chemicals, including the chemicals used in refrigeration plant. Now, what happened was, this Dow Chemicals, because it is a chemical company, it spilled chemicals, and that dripped, that percolated into the drinking water, as a result of which the town was affected adversely. Now, when the town was adversely affected, though in a Coasean approach, what was expected was the chemical company, it goes and have a discussion with the residents which were affected. What happened was, in actual practice, the residents went to the court. The residents went to the court, and they filed a lawsuit. And once the lawsuit was filed, the Dow Chemicals company again bought the land of the residents there, and the town was abandoned. So look at it again from a holistic perspective. You see that the Coasian approach, if it was taken, the dough chemicals, though it was actually enforced in the courts, but it still bargained with the residents, and it bought the land from the people of the entire town, which was adversely affected by the chemicals spilling into the drinking water, and it resulted in the whole town being abandoned. So that is not the actual solution actually. So if even though chemicals had money to buy the residents, that has not resulted in actual environmental pollution reduction. Same thing was about Georgia Gulf Company. These are all fossil fuel companies. Exxon, Shell, all these companies, they are reportedly bought properties near their chemical plants and refineries. Okay, so if it was lucrative for the polluter to pollute, it simply went on polluting it, and it simply offers some compensation to the stakeholders. So that way, the Coasian approach is not very effective in dealing with the pollution problem from a holistic perspective. So this is another slide where it shows that Exxon and Shell, they started purchasing, but this purchasing or the bargaining didn't happen voluntarily. Though the claim is it happens voluntarily, but it didn't happen voluntarily. People had to go to the court, fight a court battle, and get made sure, and the courts enforce the property rights, and then and there, the bargain price was lucrative to the polluting. So all these case studies which I compiled, they basically point out the same thing, that though ideally what is expected is that people voluntarily bargain, but what happens is usually uh, the people who are adversely affected go to the courts, and then some settlement is worked out, and the settlement is often in the form of people having to be permanently displaced, though compensation is given to them. So this is a limitation of Coase theorem. So to summarize the critique of Coase theorem, what are the limitations of Coase theorem? We have, as we have seen in this above case studies, decision is generally taken in the interest of richer sections of the society, powerful companies, as in our case, Shell, Mobile, then the other company, Georgia Gulf, Exxon, all these companies. So the decision was taken in the interest of these powerful companies, and only by considering the short-term profits. The second thing is we also saw that though the Coasian approach actually says that there is no need of government intervention, but you see that there is a government intervention in the enforcement of the property rights. So government has to take the side uh, with the societal needs, and it has to make sure that the property rights are enforced, especially the property rights of the people who are weak. The third thing is we don't know whether the bargaining which we had discussed in our case studies was really fair or not, because generally when we talk about bargaining, the bargaining has to be between two equals. If one part is strong, other part is weak, then it might happen that the bargaining is not fair. The last point also mentions that the farmers, for example, which were evicted from land by the companies, they were not offered a competitive market because it was one company buying that land. If there were many companies buying the land, then the farmers would have received a competitive price. But if the farmers are evicted from land by a corporate, a single corporate, then it might also be a monopsony. Monopsony means in which a market situation in which there is only a single buyer, often leading to the exploitation of the people who are evicted from land. So these are the limitations of Coase theorem uh, as compared to the Pigovian approach, right? I hope you understood the Coase theorem well, and also when this Coase approach could be beneficial in analyzing and tackling externalities, and when it will not work. Thank you.